In the days right before October 7th, something big was happening in Israel. Massive protests hitting the street of Tel Aviv, demanding a new government there. They wanted the overthrow of the corrupt Netanyahu government. And of course, we at Redacted knew individuals who worked for the Netanyahu government who quit and told us how corrupt he is. So
we covered these protests at the time, straight from Tel Aviv.
So that there's the headline there. Hundreds of thousands march in Israel against Netanyahu's judicial overhaul. You notice the timestamp on that was 2023, shortly before October 7th. Israelis were finished with Bibi's corruption, trying to take over the judiciary, essentially giving himself more control. The hundreds of thousands of protesters demanding that he step down weren't some fanatical leftists either. The opposition was broad across all sectors of Israel, involving civil society, tech sector leaders, reservist soldiers, IDF soldiers, media outlets, and municipal governments. In some cases, entire industries threatened walkouts of their companies and businesses over Netanyahu. And then guess what? Suddenly, October 7th happened. It's convenient. IDF soldiers have confirmed, of course, that during court hearings, they were told to stand down for 6 to 8 hours on the morning of October 7th to allow Hamas basically to carry out these attacks.
6:30 בבוקר, 7 באוקטובר, אתה במוצב.
אצלנו ה-7 באוקטובר מתחיל לפני 6:30. אני הייתי לוחם במחלקת מרגמות בגדוד 13, גולני, ובאותו לילה אני, יותם סור, הסמל שלי תמר בן יהודה, זיכרונו לברכה, שלושתנו עושים לילה לבן. הרשינו לעצמנו בשבתות וחגים במיוחד, לעשות לילה לבן עד לכוננות עם שחר, ואתם יודעים, יש לנו זמן לישון מחלקת מרגמות עד לכוננות הבאה. אז ב-5:20 בבוקר אנחנו יושבים ליד הקשר כדי לא להעיר מאזין, והסמג"ד שלי, ניר בוינפלק, שגם הוא נפצע קשה.
Yeah, so stand down, don't wake up.
Sleep late.
Sleep late this particular day.
Have a lie-in.
Everyone knew it was coming. Mossad knew it was coming. Egyptian intelligence warned Mossad multiple times that it was coming. So we even talked to Israelis who left Israel prior to October 7th, who told us they're now living in Greece. They said, we knew it was coming, and we left. So everyone knew it was coming. The most heavily guarded, monitored border in the world. Everyone knew it was coming. So the timing was perfect for Netanyahu. He gets to hold on to power because now they're at war. Well, those protests have returned, and government opposition to get rid of Netanyahu is growing once again. Israel's opposition leader, Yair Lapid, denouncing the Netanyahu regime, which he calls extremist and a failed government, and he's calling for Israelis to throw him out now. He blames Netanyahu for Israel's low standing around the world. He blames Bibi for its low relationship with the United States. He blames Bibi for destroying Israel's democratic foundations. He blames Netanyahu for allowing October 7th to happen and the failures of October 7th and why so many Israelis were killed that day. You basically put them out to slaughter. You allowed them to die on purpose. So will the mainstream media cover this? Of course not. They want you to believe the lie that all Israelis love Benjamin Netanyahu and are united in support of a genocide in Gaza. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Daniel McAdams is from the Ron Paul Institute and a great thinker on this, and I believe served in the House Foreign Relations Committee a number of years ago and knows this perhaps better than anyone. Daniel, welcome back to the show. Great to see you, our friend.
Thanks for having me back on. Appreciate it.
So when you see, well, first of all, the mainstream media is ignoring this story. And anytime you see some people on the streets in Tel Aviv, we're all told that it has nothing to do with protesting Netanyahu. Don't believe your lying eyes. That everyone in Israel loves Netanyahu, but the truth couldn't be further from the truth. Can you speak to that?
Is there any mainstream media not owned by Larry Ellison now? I'm not sure. Are there any channels left?
Right.
I wonder why it's not being covered, whatsoever by the mainstream media. But you remember back the Project for the New American Century before 9/11, they put out a document that said America needs to have a Pearl Harbor moment. Well, that's exactly what happened in Israel. And I think you put it very well together. There is absolutely no way they could have had this genocide, this ethnic cleansing in Gaza without October 7th. If it was just a fortuitous accident, it would be the most coincidental event probably in world history.
Now, probably your feed, like mine, is full of all of these agents of Israel on X telling me that we must support the Israeli government. And what they mean by that is continue to support Netanyahu's war. And so it makes me so confused that these agents of Israel would not understand the temperature of actual Israelis that want a peaceful government, that want this extremist government to be thrown out and want to actually have some choice. Where do you think that disconnect is? Is it just because those agents are a direct line to Netanyahu's government?
Well, there's a lot of money out there to pay people. But I hate to throw cold water on this thesis because I like the thesis as well. And perhaps these recent polls are untrue, but it does show a very high level of support in Israel for the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. I think as high as 80-some%. So I wonder how much of this is political jockeying on behalf of in opposed to a very, very unpopular prime minister for a number of reasons, including corruption problems, and how much of it is that there is a big chunk of Israel right now that does not want to continue Palestinians. Now, some of that blame is certainly for them, but some of them is years and years of propagandization and constant, nonstop propagandization from a very early age. I was just looking at you talk about our feed. I just looked at something where someone was in a New York protest, a pro-Israel protest with a sign, "Kill 'em all," and that was 2 years before October 7th. So this has been something that's been drummed into them for a long time.
Right.
What about Netanyahu himself and the opposition? So you're seeing Yair Lapid, who's calling for the overthrow of the Netanyahu government, establishing a basically a new democratically supportive government, down with the corruption. Netanyahu is not going to call for an investigation into October 7th until he has said the war is over, which means by that time he'll be likely out of power. Because he's holding on to power. So what do you make of the opposition in Israel? How strong is it? And will they gain any traction for a government collapse?
Well, unlike at the time of Rabin, there was no peace party in Israel. I remember when Rabin died. In fact, I signed his book of condolences in the Israeli embassy in Budapest. That was a person who stood in opposition to Netanyahu, and there's a lot of evidence that Netanyahu actually had him killed. I don't see a Rabin-like figure in Israel right now that says we need to find peace. We need to find a way to live in our neighborhood, to live with our neighbors. We can't just keep bombing people and expect to somehow survive, because at some point they're going to be able to hit us back and it'll be the end of us. I just don't see a figure like that. Maybe that figure exists somewhere, but I certainly don't see any evidence of it right now.
Well, and it would be hard for us to know because we can't break through the algorithm. The media won't tell us about it. If you think of how the media covers opposition, like they thought Alexei Navalny was a serious contender for the Russian president and some kind of hero. And then when you actually do the study, he was a blowhard. And so
it had like less than 2% support.
Only in urban centers. So how can we possibly know what's true at this point? But I think your point is well taken, that even though there is support for the war in Gaza to continue, because Israelis sort of believe that will be theirs soon. And it does seem like that there at least will be a proxy that will belong to them, right?
I remember right after 9/11 when they were pushing the Patriot Act through, and Dr. Paul was one of very few people to vote against it. And the attitude at the time was that, what kind of monster are you? Don't you realize we've just been hit? How dare you not give away all of our liberties so that we can be kept safe? And it took time for us to realize that the government didn't want the Patriot Act to spy on the bad guys. They wanted to spy on us. So there still probably is a lot of that. Israel's a small country with a sort of an insular society, and sort of single goal oriented society. So that may be still some of that. How dare you come out as a peace candidate? Don't you know we're at war? It's hard to know, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. There's even in the opposition to Netanyahu right now, there still seems to be some delusion and still like a bloodlust for taking over all of Gaza, because even if you read in the foreignaffairs.com article, the opinion piece written by Yair Lapid, who is the opposition to Netanyahu, calls him corrupt, wants him thrown out, there is still some delusion there. He says, I'm going to quote him now. Before October 7th, Israel was known for its innovative tech-driven economy, its strong, vibrant democracy, resolutely independent judicial system. It was a country with more Nobel Prize winners than all 22 Arab countries together, diplomatic connections to Washington, Abu Dhabi, peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan. It seems to be a little bit of delusion there on his part, but this is the main opposition.
But you don't forget that by design, there really isn't a counterpart on the Palestinian side to negotiate with. We all know that Hamas was created and supported by Israel so that there wasn't a sort of Palestinian, Muslim, and Christian coalition as they had in the West Bank. They created this so there wouldn't be anyone to talk to. That was the idea. That's how to get around any kind of solution. So now in a situation where who are you going to talk to? It's very, very difficult. There wouldn't be a counterpart. If a peace candidate emerged in Israel, there wouldn't be the equivalent on the Palestinian side at the moment, because they've all been, killed, and they were also not allowed to be nurtured to organically grow up from within the society.
And social media has really been tamped down too, Dan, because I remember during the protests before October 7th, I mean, you had hundreds of thousands of people on the streets in Tel Aviv. I had friends who live in Tel Aviv. Yes, I know it's maybe hard to believe, but I have friends in Tel Aviv, and they were FaceTiming me, showing me out their window unbelievable protests. And they're telling me how corrupt the Netanyahu government is. And people want him out. And the words that we were being told to me was, Clayton, this is bad. This is bad. They want him gone. He is corrupt. We're sick of it. So, people, it's just totally whitewashed now. Social media, we're memory hole this whole thing.
This is a guy who brings his dirty skivvies to Washington when he comes back to get them laundered. So He's not the paragon of appropriateness, let's put it that way. But yeah, the corruption, I'm sure, has been very, very deep. And he's been in power since 1996. I remember when he was elected, I thought it was a great thing. I thought he was, a good conservative guy. Wow, that's changed a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
But you notice that today is October 8th. Yesterday was October 7th. There was a major push to remind us of this tragedy and remind us of, who they think is the real victims, which is Israel here, even though the exchange rate for lives has now proved to be about 1 to 100 to about 50,000, in my estimation. That might be conservative. And I don't think it got the traction that they were hoping for.
It was a big PR push.
Yeah. So what do you make of that? And it's not that we lack that we lack sympathy for the civilian victims of October 7th. Absolutely we do. We think they are the victims of both Hamas and the Israeli government. But what they needed from us is carte blanche to continue to exterminate civilians, and it doesn't seem like they got it.
Well, the photographs that they have, that they present as this evidence, it really is damning. That you're going to tell me that a few dozen guys, parachuting down in lawn chairs with AK-47s were able to somehow incinerate hundreds of automobiles. I've never seen that happen before. I've fired AKs. They don't seem to have that option. There's no auto flamethrower, this sort of thing. So obviously, yeah, we have sympathy for the people that were killed, but who killed them? Who killed the most of them? And that wonderful testimony you showed is very revealing. Also, there's testimony in other aspects of the Hannibal Directive that said, stand down and let this happen. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And it must be a wake-up call for the Israeli people to realize that their own government doesn't give a crap if they live or die if they serve for a higher purpose. It's one thing for the enemy, for the Palestinians to be treated that way, but hang on a minute. Us too? Wow.
Right. Yeah. Hamas killing civilians and killing IDF soldiers, awful. But how did that happen? Are we not allowed to question that and be outraged at these? I feel my heart goes out to these young IDF soldier girls who were just fresh out of college. They were along a lot of the border outposts, and they were slaughtered, and they were put out to slaughter on purpose by the Israeli government. And that's what kills me the most. Yes, Hamas did the shooting, used the bullets, but it was the Israelis who put them out there on purpose as cannon fodder because they knew it was coming. And that there's no talk about that. And that to me is absolutely outrageous, in the same way that we should all be upset about the collusion with the United States government and Lyndon Johnson with the Israeli government in killing American sailors on the USS Liberty, or, you know, wherever. I mean, it's just infuriating to me that we're just memory holding this part of the story. And there's enough Israeli voices, though, that I think are loud enough where we're not going to memory hold this. Dan, any final thoughts?
Well, it's a good thing that you point out these young girls. I mean, they're cannon fodder, but they're also fresh, pretty young faces that are put out there for a reason, because that's how they look. They're nice-looking young gals, and to see them destroyed for propaganda value it's really just it's disgusting.
Oh, that's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah.
Like, these are the girls that Hamas killed on October 7th. Yeah, they were put there on purpose by the Israeli government. Never forget. Dan, great to see you. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.